Some storms don't come with thunder. On the high plains of Colorado, where wind shapes the land as surely as fathers shape sons, Weston Hale has spent his life under the iron weight of a name that means powerland and obedience. He's been taught that legacy isn't earned, it's enforced, and that marriage is just another tool to keep the fences tight. So when his father orders him to wed Iris McKenna, the disgraced daughter of a ruined rancher, Weston braces himself for another link in the chain he's worn since birth. But Iris isn't the meek bargaining chip he expects. She walks into his life like a storm, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore her sharp eyes, seeing not just the Hale name, but the man trapped beneath it. Bound by a vow neither chose, they're thrust into a world of restless cattle, whispered debts, and a fire set to burn more than just the pasture. Together they'll face questions no legacy can answer: what's worth saving, what's worth burning, and whether two people bound by force can learn to stand by choice. This isn't a story of white dresses and easy love. It's about finding truth in the ashes, and the kind of courage it takes to claim a piece of land and a life as your own. In the high plains of Colorado, where the wind carves the soil as deeply as legacy carves, men power isn't just inherited, it's enforced. The Hale Ranch stretches wide across this dust-worn landscape, its fences older than memory and its name heavier than iron. Inside the study of its grand house, the scent of leather cigar smoke and old bloodlines hangs thick. This is where deals are made, not with handshakes, but with expectations, threats, and signatures no one dares refuse. Weston Hale stands tall in that room, broad-shouldered and square-jawed like his father before him, but his spine is stiff with something that feels dangerously close to defiance. He was raised for this moment, raised to obey, to protect what was his, though he never got to choose what that meant. Across the desk, Rufus Hale doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. A folded envelope hits the wood with a sharp thud, and the decree is made. Weston will marry Iris McKenna by Saturday. She comes with what we need. Rufus says, his voice dry as prairie dust. Her family's ridge the last parcel worth anything west of the river. I don't care if her father drank himself into ruin. What matters is the land. You'll wed her. That's the end of it. But for Weston, it's not that simple. It never was. To hell with land, he mutters under his breath, jaw tight. You're selling me off like I'm part of the herd. Rufus doesn't blink. You're a Hale. You don't marry for love. You marry for legacy. And there it is. That word again, legacy, a chain wrapped in velvet, dressed up like honor, but pulling tighter with each generation. Before Weston can speak again, the door creaks open. She steps in Iris McKenna. No warning, no apology. The kind of entrance that says she's no stranger to being spoken about like she isn't in the room. The late afternoon light frames her silhouette like a painting, a soft gray dress hugging her waist, one loose strand of raven dark hair slipping across her cheek. But it's her eyes that hold the room hostage, eyes like storm glass, clear and sharp, like she's already seen everything broken in the world and decided not to flinch. Weston turns toward her, not expecting to be struck dumb. She's not beautiful in the way men expect. She's dangerous in the way men don't understand until it's too late. Am I interrupting something? She asks, voice quiet but lined with steel. The question cuts through the air like a blade. Not timid, not uncertain, controlled. Weston should look away, but doesn't, can't. Something in him, something buried beneath years of obedience, starts to stir. She doesn't wait for permission to step further inside. Rufus remains unmoved, his gaze already shifting toward the future, the contracts, the land, the deal done. But for Weston, that glance from Iris McKenna rearranges the floor beneath his feet. This isn't the meek daughter of a disgraced family. This isn't a girl who needs rescuing. This is a woman who's already survived the fire. And Weston, he doesn't realize it yet, but he's about to walk straight into it. In that moment, something shifts, not in the study, but in him. A lifetime of commands of quiet rage, swallowed like whiskey, now begins to uncoil. For the first time, Weston Hale wonders what it might mean to want something that wasn't handed down in blood. He's still a man built by duty, but her presence makes him wonder if he can be rebuilt by something else. A storm is coming, not one with thunder, but with choices. And when it breaks, it won't just wash away what was arranged. It will burn down everything built on obedience. And maybe, just maybe, what grows from the ash might finally belong to him. The wedding comes fast, too fast. Saturday dawns pale and wind-bitten. The Colorado sky hangs low with a thin veil of morning haze, as if the land itself disapproves. The Hale Ranch is quiet, but not peaceful. The cattle seem restless in their pens, the ranch hands unusually subdued. There's no music, no laughter, no joy, just tension thick as rawhide. The Callaway Chapel. A squat cedar building, browned by sun and wind, sits just past the river bend where weeds push through the porch planks and the bell hasn't rung in years. Inside, Weston Hale stands at the altar in a black coat that doesn't quite fit his shoulders anymore. He hasn't slept. His boots are polished, his hair combed, but his expression is locked behind the same hard jaw he inherited from his father. He's not here to wed for love. That was never on offer. He's here for land, for legacy, and every bone in his body is trying to forget the way Iris McKenna looked at him 3 days ago, like she saw right through the name Hale and into the man still trapped beneath it. The chapel is near empty. Just a preacher bought by Rufus's favors, 2 ranch hands sitting like reluctant witnesses, and silence clinging to the rafters. Weston hears the soft creak of the door behind him before he turns. She enters alone. Iris doesn't wear white. She wears gray, the same storm-colored dress from the day they met. It fits her like she meant it to. Her veil is thin, barely a whisper catching the breeze as she walks steady down the aisle. No trembling steps, no hesitation. Her spine is straight, her chin lifted. The air shifts around her. Weston forgets to breathe. It isn't just the curve of her shoulders or the soft movement of the dress as it brushes her boots. It's the way she meets his eyes, full on, unflinching, as if to say, "You're not the only one being sacrificed here." There's no plea for rescue, no trace of surrender. Only a woman who knows her name, even if the world has tried to ruin it. She stops beside him. Close enough he can smell the faint trace of lavender and smoke clinging to her hair. She's smaller than she seemed in the study, but somehow more immense. The preacher speaks his voice like dry leaves scraping the floorboards. The old vows feel brittle, hollow. "Do you, Weston Hale, take this woman?" Weston's voice is steady, too steady. "I do." A pause. "And you, Iris McKenna?" She doesn't look at the preacher. She keeps her eyes locked on Weston's, and when she says "I do," it lands like a challenge rather than a promise. Not soft, but deliberate. Her voice carries something sharp beneath it, like the edge of a blade still warm from the forge. Weston lifts the veil. His hand grazes her cheek as he does, and the contact jolts through him, unexpected, electric. Beneath the sheer fabric, her face is calm. Beautiful, yes, but not in the fragile porcelain sense. She's beautiful in the way wildfire is beautiful. Controlled now, but always capable of turning. He doesn't kiss her. He doesn't have to. The way she looks at him feels far more intimate than anything lips could offer. Outside, the wind shifts. Dust kicks up across the chapel yard like an omen catching in the dry weeds. Weston walks her down the steps, their arms barely touching, but the space between them feels volatile, too much heat for so little contact. The ride back to the ranch is silent. She sits upright in the saddle reins, loose in her fingers, eyes scanning the land like she already belongs to it. Weston watches her from the corner of his vision, wondering how someone bound to him by a forced vow can look so completely free. At the ranch house, they don't share a room. She's given the bedroom across the hall from his, the one that used to belong to his uncle before he vanished into the Dakota territory. It smells of dust and oiled wood. Iris says nothing as she enters, just opens her small travel case and begins to unpack with the quiet precision of someone used to impermanence. Weston lingers in his doorway, his shirt's half-buttoned. The lamplight flickers behind him, throwing his shadow across the floor of her room. She doesn't look at him, but she knows he's there. He can tell by the stillness of her shoulders, the pause in her hands. She sets a leather journal on the nightstand, a photograph beside it too, faded to make out the faces, then a small pouch of dried herbs that releases a soft, earthy scent into the air. Sage, maybe mint, maybe something older. She's built her whole life into a travel case, and yet even now she's not trying to disappear. He watches her reach for the top shelf. Her blouse pulls tight across her back, the line of her spine a map of quiet defiance. His throat tightens. He turns away before she catches him staring. That night, neither of them sleeps. The silence is heavy, not awkward, not hostile, just full. The kind of silence that wraps around two people who both know the room they're in isn't built on love, but still can't ignore the pull of what might be hiding underneath. In the dark, Weston stares at the ceiling and wonders if this woman, this stranger, might be the only person who's ever looked at him without seeing a hail first. He doesn't know her past. She doesn't know his scars. But something has begun fragile as a candle's flame in prairie wind. And though the wedding has come and gone, the true marriage, whatever it's meant to be, has only just begun. Morning breaks like a whisper across the Hale Ranch, casting long, slanted light across dew-wet fields and barn roofs, weathered by time. Weston Hale is already dressed, boots muddy from walking fence lines that haven't needed checking in weeks. It's not duty that drives him out early now, it's restlessness. A quiet, persistent hum beneath the surface, something born the moment Iris McKenna walked into his world, like a storm that refused to announce itself. But it isn't her presence alone that unsettles him. It's her stillness. She moves through the house with the calm precision of someone used to surviving places that don't want her. She speaks little, asks nothing. But every time Weston passes her in the hallway or finds her alone at the edge of a pasture ledger in hand, he feels that same knot tighten in his chest, the feeling that she's not lost, just waiting. By the third morning, he finds her not in the kitchen, but in his father's old study, the one Rufus used to keep locked until the day Weston married. She's seated behind the desk, sleeves rolled to the elbow, her dark hair coiled in a loose bun at the nape of her neck. The ledgers are open pages, splayed like old secrets. Weston lingers in the doorway, watching the way her fingers trace each column, confident, sharp, unflinching. "You always go through another man's books before breakfast?" he asks, voice rougher than he means it to be. She doesn't look up immediately. When she does, her gaze is calm, not startled, not apologetic. "I go where the numbers don't lie," she says. "The house is bleeding more than it should. Feed orders don't match the cattle reports. You've got a leak." Weston narrows his eyes. "And you figured that out in 3 days?" 2.5, she replies, flipping a page. "I didn't count the wedding." There's no boast in her tone, just fact. He steps into the room, boots scuffing the floor. My father's men ran this ranch for years. If something was off, you would have heard it from the same men covering their tracks. She finishes sliding the ledger toward him. Her hands are ink-smudged and steady. I'm not saying this to insult you, Weston. I'm saying it because if we're married, whatever that means, you ought to know what's breaking under your roof. He stares at her, the tension between them as taut as barbed wire. He wants to say she's wrong, wants to pull the books away and remind her this is his family's land. But instead, he pulls out a chair, sits across from her, and listens. It becomes a rhythm between them. Iris doesn't ask for permission to step into the work, she just does. She checks water levels in the western troughs, hauls hay beside the hands, and reins in a loose colt with the calm of someone who's handled worse. The men on the ranch don't trust her yet, but they watch. Quietly, warily. Weston watches too. He sees the way her jaw sets when she's concentrating, how her hair sticks to her neck in the afternoon heat, the faint smudge of dust across her cheek. She works with quiet determination, not grace. There's nothing performative about her. She doesn't try to please anyone. That unnerves the men, and it rattles him. One afternoon, Weston finds her alone in the barn, mending a busted saddle. Her hands move fast, efficient, as if she's done this her entire life. He leans against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You ever take a break?" he asks. She doesn't look up. Breaks are for people who've earned rest. You think you haven't? I think I can rest once I stop owing the world something. He studies her, the edge in her voice more familiar now. Not anger memory. Like every word carries the weight of places she doesn't speak of. "Is that what you're doing here?" he asks, voice low. "Paying off a debt?" This time she does look up. Her eyes meet his, and for a moment the barn feels smaller, tighter. "I'm here because your father offered me a way to stay alive," she says plainly. "What I didn't expect was you." He doesn't know what to say to that, so he doesn't, and yet the space between them keeps shifting. He notices small things. The way she leaves the porch lantern burning if he's still out at night. The faint melody she hums while sorting supplies in the smokehouse. The soft furrow in her brow when she reads by lamplight. None of it feels like affection, and yet none of it feels meaningless either. They are strangers tied together by paper and land, but something is growing beneath the surface, something made of glances, silences, and things they both refuse to name. One evening, just before the sun slips behind the ridge, Weston catches sight of Iris walking alone through the south field. She kneels beside a dying cottonwood, her hand resting on the bark. He approaches quietly, unsure why his feet move at all. "Trees older than the house," he says, stopping beside her. "I know," she replies. "My father used to ride me out here when I was little. Told me this was where the land breathed. You miss it. Not the man. Just the place. Before it all went wrong." The wind shifts. Her braid flutters behind her shoulder. Weston feels the weight of everything he doesn't know about her pressing down, and everything he doesn't understand about himself pulling forward. "I don't know what kind of man you think I am," he says softly, "but I'm trying not to be the kind my father made." She glances at him, a flicker of something unspoken in her expression. Then maybe we've both come to the wrong place for the right reason. Neither speaks after that. But when they walk back together, their steps fall in rhythm. And for the first time since their wedding, the silence between them feels like something shared, not endured. The Colorado summer stretches long and dry, a cruel season that parches the land and shortens tempers. Each day bleeds into the next at the Hale Ranch, sun-up to sundown chores, blend with silence, and Weston finds himself watching Iris more than the sky. He doesn't mean to. It just happens. She moves like she's carrying something no one sees, something weighty and old, and hers alone. Most nights they eat dinner at the same table but speak little. The ranch hands have stopped speculating aloud about the bride with secrets, though their glances still linger too long. Weston has shut them down once hard. After that, they kept their whispers behind barn walls. But even Weston knows the talk doesn't die. It just gets quieter. That week, the heat settles over the ranch like a warning. The wind shifts east, dry and fast, the kind of wind that turns one loose spark into an inferno. Rufus, always calculating, sends Weston and Iris to inspect the southern fence line, an excuse no doubt to push them together and keep an eye on the last stretch of boundary before the Harlan land. Weston saddles up first, his mare agitated. Iris mounts beside him without hesitation, her boots, dusty skirt tucked over her saddle, eyes scanning the ridge with sharp awareness. They ride side by side, though neither says much. The silence between them isn't uncomfortable anymore, just charged like a wire stretched too tight. As they reach the south pasture, the wind sharpens and the smell hits first. Smoke, thin, acrid, wrong. Weston stiffens in the saddle. Do you smell that Iris is already off her horse boots, hitting dry grass as she scans the horizon? Her hand rises to shield her eyes from the sun, and there it is, a faint line of orange curling over the ridge. Distant, but growing. Fire. She doesn't wait for orders. Weston watches her sprint toward the sagging corner post, dropping to one knee to check the burn line. Her blouse clings to her back, sweat already forming in the crook of her neck. He dismounts beside her. Too close to the creek, she says breathlessly. If it crosses, it jumps the ridge. That's the hayfield. Weston mutters a curse. I'll get the hands. But she's already running. By the time he reaches the bunkhouse, Iris has rallied 3 men with buckets and wet blankets. She doesn't bark orders. She moves like a storm, and they follow. Weston joins the fray without a word, and together they race toward the blaze that now licks through the tall grass like it's starving. The fire is faster than they thought. Wind feeds it like kindling feeds fury. Iris is a blur in the chaos, sleeves rolled, hands red from hauling water and beating flames. Weston sees her dive beside a flame-touched fence post, slamming it with a soaked blanket until the fire hisses and dies. Her hairs come loose, flying around her face. Her voice is hoarse but steady, calling to the men, warning when the wind changes. He moves beside her, grabbing the edge of the same blanket as another flare ignites at their feet. They stamp it out together, shoulder to shoulder, smoke curling around their legs. Watch out, someone yells, but Iris is already turning eyes wide, yanking Weston back as a beam collapses inches from where he'd stood. They fall hard. His back hits the dirt, and she lands against his chest. For a breathless second, the world goes quiet. Her hand presses against his ribs, her breath hot near his collarbone. Their eyes lock through smoke and ash, and then she's pushing off him, already scrambling to her feet. The fire rages, but something else has broken open. When the last flame dies and the smoke begins to settle, the fence is scorched but intact. The men stand panting, soaked in sweat, blackened with soot. Weston glances around, heart pounding, not from the fire now, but from what almost happened. He finds her near the edge of the creek, bent over a bucket, splashing water on her arms. Her blouse is half untucked, streaked with ash sleeves torn. Her eyes meet his as he approaches. You didn't have to do all that, he says, voice still raw from smoke and something deeper. She straightens slowly, water dripping from her wrist. Neither did you, she replies, calm but firm. But we did. They stand there for a long moment. No heat now, only silence and wet earth beneath their boots. Back at the house, the ranch has quieted into uneasy calm. The smell of char still hangs in the air, clinging to the curtains, the beams their clothes. Iris disappears to the barn, and Weston follows some invisible pull until he finds her there, checking on the horses, moving slowly now, exhaustion dragging at her limbs. The lantern light spills across her face, catching the edge of her jaw. Her lips, her eyes rimmed with fatigue but unyielding. Her braid has mostly come undone strands, framing her like shadow. He leans in the doorway, unsure what to say, unsure if words would even matter. That fire, he starts, voice low. It wasn't just chance. She doesn't flinch. She keeps brushing the mare's coat eyes on her hands. No, she says finally. I don't think it was. A beat. He steps closer, lowering his voice. Then someone started it. On purpose. She pauses. Yes, because of you. Her hand stills. Her shoulders rise, then fall. Because of my father, she says, and the men he owed. Weston's fists clench at his sides. You should have told me. I didn't know if you'd care. That lands hard. He steps forward, grabs her wrist, not harshly, just enough to make her stop, to make her look at him. I do care, he says, more than I should. Their eyes meet, the weight of truth hanging between them like dusk. His grip loosens, but he doesn't pull away. Her wrist stays in his hand, warm, steady, and for a moment he almost leans in. But the sound comes again, low, distant. Not thunder. Something heavier. A dull rumble from beyond the ridge. They both freeze. Weston turns, steps into the night. Over the trees just faintly glow. Smoke again. His pulse quickens. Iris joins him, her hand brushing his arm, grounding him. But it's not just fire they face now. It's everything they've tried to bury. The fire never reached the homestead. By dawn, the sky is smeared with ash-pale light, and the faint remnants of smoke drifting low over the southern ridge. It had looked like hell rising from the earth, but in the end, the wind shifted, the flames died, and the ranch endured. What no one says out loud is how close they came to losing it all. What no one dares admit is that some things still smolder. Weston Hale walks the char line before breakfast, boots crunching over blackened grass. The scorched fence, a jagged scar against the land. He passes a ruined post and stops to rest his hand on the top rail. It's still warm, not from the fire, but from the moment his world began to burn differently, from the look in Iris's eyes, from the weight of her truth, and the question still rising in his chest. Who am I, if I stay silent? Behind him, the sun peeks over the ridge, casting long light over the house his father built, and the woman now sleeping under its roof. He turns back. Later that morning, Weston steps into the study. Rufus Hale is already seated at the desk, nursing a cigar and reading a dispatch from a banker in Greeley. The room is quiet but tense, like the moment before a thunderclap. Weston doesn't wait to be acknowledged. He closes the door behind him and speaks plainly. I'm not going through with it. Rufus lifts an eyebrow without looking up. You're already married. I don't mean the ceremony, Weston says. I mean the part where I let you decide what that marriage means. That gets Rufus's attention. He sets the paper down and exhales slowly, cigar smoke curling through the air like a noose. You forget who put that ring on her finger, boy. No, Weston says, stepping forward. I remember exactly who did. And I'm telling you now, I'm not staying chained to a plan that never asked what either of us wanted. Silence. Then coolly Rufus says, She's a woman with a debt around her neck. Don't mistake admiration for redemption. Weston's jaw tightens. I'm not mistaking anything. I see her clearer than I see you, and just like that it's done. He turns, not waiting for approval, not looking back. The door clicks softly behind him, but it sounds louder than any slam. Outside, the air smells of dust and fading smoke. He finds Iris by the stable, checking a lame colt with careful hands. Her braid is loose again, a few strands clinging to her cheek. The morning light spills across her features, tired, serious, beautiful, in a way that still feels like a question he doesn't have the answer to. She looks up when she hears his steps. "You sure?" she asks softly before he can say anything. He nods. No hesitation, no apology. "I'm sure." She doesn't smile, but something in her expression softens, like a tight thread finally gives way. Together, they ride out just past the south ridge, where the land flattens and the cottonwoods stand twisted and defiant against the wind. They dismount near a tree that's half scorched, but still standing. Iris brushes her fingers across its bark and closes her eyes. "This was my father's favorite spot," she says quietly. "Before the drinking, before the debts. He used to say this ridge watched over us, that it remembered." Weston watches her hand on the tree. The quiet reverence, the pain in her voice, not for the man, but for what he could have been. "I'm not here to carry his shadow," she says finally, turning toward Weston. "And I'm not here to take his land back through you. That's not who I am." He takes a step closer. "Then tell me who you are." Her voice is steady. A woman who's tired of surviving without meaning. Someone who's not scared to fight for a place that won't spit her out. Someone who didn't come here to be saved, but to stand beside someone who'll stand back. Weston reaches for her hand, not as possession, not out of duty, but like someone choosing what was never offered before. Their fingers intertwine warm against the rising wind. They walk the ridge together, boots stirring up old earth and soot. Below them, the scorched line from the fire still cuts a dark ribbon through the pasture, but grass is already pushing back through. Green shoots among the ash. Back at the ranch, things begin to shift. The hands watch them differently now. Weston doesn't correct the ones who look to Iris for direction. She earns that on her own. By the week's end, she's restructured the bunkhouse supply log, fixed 2 broken harnesses, and uncovered a flaw in the spring-fed irrigation line no one else saw. In the evenings, they sit on the porch without speaking. Coffee in tin cups, stars coming alive above them. Their knees brush sometimes. Other times, Weston watches her hand resting on the rail and wonders how long it'll take to touch her again without the world watching. Then one night she speaks. "Do you regret it?" He turns to her. "Regret? What?" Standing up to him. "Choosing this." He studies her for a long moment. The glow of the lantern, the shape of her in the dark. "No," he says, "because for the first time, I'm not living for someone else's story." A silence settles between them, but it's a peaceful one, like the quiet that comes after fire. That week they claim a stretch of land near the base of the ridge, the one her father once lost in a poker game and Rufus later bought for pennies. Weston drives the stakes in himself. Iris surveys the land, her eyes tracking soil, sun, and water. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming. They name it McKenna Rise, not because it's hers, but because now it's theirs. The land doesn't forget. It holds the memory of fire in its soil, the echo of bootsteps in its dust, the weight of names spoken in anger or devotion. And as the days stretch on across McKenna Rise, no longer Rufus Hale's land, no longer a debt-laden inheritance, Weston and Iris begin to build something new, not quickly, not easily, but honestly. There are still days when Weston wakes before dawn, the old instincts pulling at him to check the fence lines, to walk the pastures alone like he used to. But now he finds Iris already up, sleeves rolled, eyes fixed on the horizon. She doesn't ask where he's going. She hands him his gloves, a fresh biscuit wrapped in a cloth, and walks beside him. No words, just presence. And it's that presence that undoes him every time. The ranch hums with a different kind of energy now. Rufus no longer rides out. His shadow lingers sure, but it doesn't rule. The hands notice it too. They take orders from both Weston and Iris now, and when she speaks, no one interrupts. Not because she's loud, but because she's right. She sees things most don't, like the tremor in a horse's flank before a buck, the rotting in a beam. before it collapses the truth in a man's silence before he lies. Some evenings, Weston watches her work the soil near the old cottonwood hands, stained with dirt, hair tangled with sweat. And he knows she's no longer surviving someone else's world. She's shaping her own. One fence post, one seed, one hard-earned decision at a time. And as for him, he's no longer the son trying to measure up to a man he resents. He's something simpler and harder to become, a man living on his own terms. A man learning how to love not with grand gestures, but in the quiet spaces between shared labor and soft laughter. They don't speak often of the fire, or of the men who might still come looking, but the scars it left on the land, on the fences, on both of them, remain. And in some way that's fitting, because what they have now wasn't born of ease. It was forged in smoke, in hard choices, in truths, laid bare under the weight of survival. One night, weeks after the last ember died, they sit beneath a bruised sky streaked with dusk. Weston's hand rests over Iris's fingers, rough but steady. A breeze brushes her cheek, and she leans against him without thinking. "You ever wonder what it might have been like if we'd met under different terms?" she asks, her voice barely more than a breath. He considers the question, then shakes his head. "No," he says, "because I think, even if the story started different, I'd still end up right here. With you." She smiles, not the kind people see in town, but the kind only he knows. The kind earned over burnt earth and slow forgiveness. And as the first star appears above the ridge, they don't make promises. They don't speak of forever. They just stay, together, not out of obligation, not out of legacy, but out of something harder to define and infinitely more enduring choice. If this story stirred something in you, hope, heartache, or the quiet fire of redemption, don't ride off just yet. Subscribe to Whispers of the West for more tales where love grows in silence and courage rises from ash. Like, comment, and let us know where you're listening from. Your story starts here.